I'll go ahead and ask you guys this question, because as a personal trainer, you have no idea what I would hear with people. I would sit down sometimes at a table with a new client, and they'd be like, well, I'm doing the ketogenic diet. And I'd be like, okay. I'd be like, well, what are you eating? They'd be like, man, I'm eating cheese, pepperonis, hot dogs, and I'd almost fall out of my chair, because and I would go into Dave Asprey and kind of not the founder of the ketogenic diet, really the Atkins diet was the ketogenic diet, but they also, of course, had those Atkins bars, a lot of poison trash. But truth be told, in the 90s, he figured out if you had type 2 diabetes or type 1, following a low carbohydrate diet was the way to go. Well, he was right. Of course, if you have pancreatic issues or your pancreas malfunctions, eating tons of carbohydrates is ridiculous. But a lot of diabetes nutritionists will tell you to eat tons of grains and carbohydrates, but that's because the insulin companies are teaching that, because the more carbs you eat, the more insulin you shoot, and so on. But truth be told, of course you need a lower carbohydrate diet. I know this because I've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 11 years old. And eating more of a ketogenic diet changed my life, my metabolic health, lowered my blood pressure levels, and we'll go into, why that is, and nutritional biochemistry a little bit again today. To talk about carbohydrate is carbon. So it puts more carbon in your blood. They're huge. That's why, when you eat carbohydrates, it boosts your nitric oxide levels. So you could say that the nitric oxide puts more oxygen in the blood and kind of balances out the carbon. But if you're eating way too much carbohydrates, the carbon overtakes the oxygen and you actually have high blood pressure from it. So the more carbs we eat, the higher our blood pressure is. Now, if we eat lots of fruit with potassium, avocado with magnesium and things of that nature, again, it can counteract it. But grains, because of the oxalates in them and lectins, counteract the effect because it inhibits our uptake of nutrients. So the more grains we eat, the fatter we get, the more carbon in our blood, the higher our blood pressure goes. That's why, truth be told, telling people to eat oatmeal to lower the blood pressure is ridiculous. Not saying that oatmeal can't be a good source of a grain, but it's actually not going to lower our blood pressure. Coconut water and an avocado will. Potassium, magnesium, and it's a cold food if you study Dr. Axe's theories of cold foods. And so this is why I hate the diet. And if you read Paul Chek's book, The No Diet, diets are ridiculous, but ketogenic diets can come into play for short periods of time for metabolic health. And so that's what we'll kind of go into today is when is a ketogenic diet beneficial and when is it not beneficial? So we'll go over some pros first. So anytime you're on a ketogenic diet, the first things you're going to notice short term are going to be increased cognition. And that's due to using fat as a fuel source because your brain is mainly made of fat, omega-3 saturated fat specifically. So when we're eating fat, we start to burn it like kerosene. Our body starts to utilize it as a fuel source, where if you eat carbs all the time, it's like gasoline, it burns up super quick, energy drops, you're hungry again in 2 hours. But fat, I notice a huge difference in being able to go long periods in between my meals without wanting to eat, but that is due to balanced blood sugar levels. So when your blood sugar levels are more balanced, you automatically have better metabolic health overall. But again, these are all short term, and I'll go into why. But in the short term, you will also see increased energy levels due to balanced blood sugar levels. The better balanced your blood sugar levels are, the more energy you're going to have all day long instead of having crashes. You will actually get lower blood pressure, and we'll go into that because most of the time on a ketogenic diet, you are eating in Chinese medicine what are called cold foods. So fat cools us down and can heat us up, like lard, because anytime we digest a animal fat specifically, it can heat us up eternally. But all that to say, usually fat from avocado, duck eggs, things like that is actually a cold food. It cools you down. Fatty fish does not heat you up. And so we'll go into why that the more fat you eat, the more oxygen you actually have in your blood. In the 2 years I ate that way, my blood pressure was like 110/60. It's the lowest it's ever been in my life. Because I've always ran a little bit on the higher side just due to blood sugar issues pretty much, imbalanced. But when I eat this way, I mean, it's like incredibly different in my body temperature and everything. Like my my body temperature stayed 97.1 and 97.6 for like 2 years. But this is because long term it's going to increase your cortisol. And so I'm going to talk about why that you have low T3 production on a ketogenic diet and why that it's actually okay and normal. It's your body's natural response to eating a ketogenic diet. It's just that, again, these things haven't been studied by the medical world for long periods of time. So when they see low T3, like your thyroid's not working, but it's because your body's adapting to slowing your metabolism because you're burning fat like kerosene. So think about it this way. A fuel source, if you start burning something slower, well, what happens? Your metabolism slows down by nature, and your T3 production slows down because T3 burns fat. That's why bodybuilders use it. Burn you up. I mean, you take extra T3, man, you get lean. Don't do that though, screw your thyroid up. I know a lot of girls that have done that in the bodybuilding world, that screwed their thyroids up pretty hardcore, which is fixable usually. But all that to say, it will be substantial changes overall in your ability to burn fat efficiently. But at the same time, long term, you can start to have high cortisol issues from it, which can actually cause you to store fat in the stomach region. But normally you will still stay pretty lean overall because your metabolism is adapting to your diet, is all that it is. Going back to what I said, fat burns like kerosene, so your T3 production drops. So anytime I have somebody on a ketogenic diet, usually their T3 is low, their doctor tells them they have a thyroid problem, they don't. But the biggest thing I run into is with women, and so I'm going to go into this. I'll kind of skip around to this because I think this is probably one of the most important things. So I'll ask you, Jasmine, what do you think of when you think of the ketogenic diet? Like, what's the first food that come into your mind? Red meat. Good. What else? Eggs, stuff like that. A lot of times when you say ketogenic diet to most Americans, the first thing that comes into their mind is usually pepperoni, cheese, and hot dogs, or nuts and avocado. So this is where like we went substantially wrong, and kind of where Dave Asprey's a genius, but he injects testosterone. He takes testosterone replacement therapy. So his cortisol will go through the roof when he does this. So these guys were teaching people to wake up, drink a cup of coffee fasted with butter, and that's good because the butter counteracts the effects. But normally still, this is what happens. Your cortisol goes through the roof, and Dr. Rhett Kinney kind of helped me figure this out about these other hormones I'll talk about. Your cortisol goes through the roof, and so does your norepinephrine. It goes through the roof, and it depletes all of your DHEA. Write that down, DHEA. It is a precursor to all anabolic hormones. So, Mitch, if you were low today in progesterone, and I gave you DHEA, it would help you produce more of it. If you were low in testosterone today, it would make you produce more of it. So I didn't get as much sleep as I normally do, being at a Kid Rock concert last night. So I took double the DHEA that I normally do this morning. Well, I did last night and this morning actually. So just 5 milligrams. But throughout the day yesterday, I took up to 20, and I never do that. But it's because I was going. When you do that, it depletes your DHEA, and I drink extra caffeine. So this is why caffeine sometimes doesn't work for people that are trying to become more metabolically healthy, is because every time they drink it, they farther stress their adrenal glands out, and these hormones go through the roof. And anytime you deplete your DHEA, you've wrecked your hormones for the whole day, and your cortisol will stay high. But if you go ahead and take some, counteract the effects. Cold hands, you guys ever experienced that? What I talked about? Take 5 to 10 milligrams of DHEA, and go away 30 minutes. So if you do want to drink a cup of coffee fasted in the morning, you take DHEA with it, and B6 specifically, and it counteracts the effects, because coffee depletes your B6 as well, and vitamin C levels. And these are just things people don't realize, and why that, especially on a ketogenic diet, when these Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield are teaching these things, run into a lot of issues with it. Because again, these men have mastered the human body. They're injecting themselves with peptides and chemicals, and Ben Greenfield is getting up naked and sticking his junk in front of a red light therapy lamp, and he's, counteracting the effects of high cortisol. But most Americans aren't getting in the sun naked, nor shining a red light therapy light on their bodies naked in the morning. Now, I do recommend that. I get into the sunlight naked as much as I can. It's actually really good for your hormones to get those areas of the body into the sunlight. It's actually been proven in science. But all that to say, most people aren't. So this is what I see specifically with a lot of my female clients. They come see me. I'm on a ketogenic diet, Darcy. What'd you have this morning? Black coffee. You're going to go through menopause super early. You're probably going to have a full hysterectomy within 5 years of doing that, especially if you're 35 or over. You're wrecking yourself. All that to say, and then I'm like, what'd you eat for lunch? Peanut butter and dark chocolate. I almost fall out of my chair, because they're oxalates, and then their cortisol is going through the roof. And if you actually look at what they're eating, by the end of the day, they make 40 grams of protein and no carbs, and they're about to die. And their hair's falling out. They're like, well, I can't go back to eating carbs because I'll get fat. But I'm like, your hair's falling out, and you have no hormones, and your husband's going to leave you because you won't have sex with him. This is like real stuff that I deal with every day. But their image, just is so they're portraying like, I'm going to get fat. So like, this is why I hate diets, because you get trapped in the diet, it becomes you. And so you'll literally like, your body is telling you to eat that sweet potato, and you're like, I'm on a ketogenic diet. I'm not going to eat that sweet potato, but your body's like, I need potassium. So this is what you see long term too, is you can start to see metabolic issues like coronary artery disease long term ketogenically, only due to a lot of them become so strict on it, they're not eating anything with electrolytes. So they become super deficient in potassium specifically. So I have them use mineral salt on all their food, but it still doesn't give them potassium. So again, what gives us the most potassium? Carbohydrates, fruit, sweet potato. So I'm going to give an example of why I teach eating with the seasons. I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I think this is super important, especially even on video recording. This planet provides us with everything that we need. And I'll give an example. In the winter time, fat from animals internally heats us up. So that's why Eskimos usually eat fatty cakes in the morning, because the carbohydrates boost their nitric oxide, and all the fat in their pancakes heat them up to go work outside. At the end of the day, when they want cooled down, they eat tons of fatty fish. Okay, so in the summertime, if we go back to nature, myself, all of us, Mitch, Joe, we would be working outside in our garden. We would be, finding food for our families, building structures. The Native Americans would usually only work 4 hours a day and then spend the rest of the time with their family. But what's going to happen while we're out there in this hot sun today? We're going to sweat all our electrolytes out. What does fresh vegetables and fruit provide us back with? Electrolytes, right? So I don't eat as much meat this time of the year because I'm working outside. I pretty much live on apples and beesberries bars while I'm doing roofs. And I'll drink a protein shake. Now I do eat eggs in the morning and things of that nature. And then at the end of the day, I'll have a big piece of meat. But see, nature provides us with the things our body needs during that time of the year because it realizes what's going to happen to us. That is how in sync nature is with our bodies and how it coincides. Fall, we start to cool down. Well, what comes up? Blueberries, apples, the fish start to go a little deeper into the water, the deer start to come out. So you see, and those are the foods we start to need more of. And then dead winter, pretty much all we have to live on are tubers, things that we store in our cellar. Our ancestors would bury their potatoes into the ground to keep them cool, and they survived mainly on meat sources. Blueberries would grow in the winter sometimes in certain areas, depending on the environment. But that's pretty much it. And of course we're advanced, and so I eat blueberries all year long and things like that. But nature provides us with what we need. So truth be told, diets now, and this is where we're very separated from nature. A guy who sits on the computer all day long, that's their job. Boom, 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 boom. Well, maybe actually they could stay on a ketogenic diet year round, because if this guy's eating a lot of carbohydrates and sitting all the time, it's not going to be good. He's going to gain a lot of weight. because carbohydrates refill our glycogen storages and they're for fast energy output. So he just needs to fuel his brain and thoughts. And what does that? Fat specifically from animals. So him eating a couple meals a day while on the computer is probably all he needs. And the biggest issue with everything today is people overeat. So first of all, carbohydrates are very necessary, and if people just wouldn't overeat food, they would probably never become overweight. Well, of course they would. You know what I mean? But like me, I have pancreas issues, so I always eat more protein and fat normally than carbohydrates, or more protein. It's either or. Like an ideal meal for me in the afternoon, and I don't count calories and all that stupid stuff, but you know, I may have 50 grams of protein with dinner, 30 carbohydrates, and sometimes 50 grams of fat. I'll eat a pound of red meat for dinner very often, you know, especially after a hard day's work. So normally I'll have eggs in the morning with some blueberries. Lunch is usually an apple with fish and macadamia nuts. If I have a snack, it's like a Beesberries bar this time of the year. Or I may eat a couple apples if I'm out roofing. And then dinner is usually some big thing of red meat, onions, and like a sweet potato. Like that's an ideal day of eating for myself, and it refills my nutrient storages. And I find that most humans eating 3 meals a day that are physically active is very necessary. You know, everyone wants to do 1 meal a day, and I'm not saying that that can't be beneficial for O and B blood types, and that's what I'll go into. Let me reel back in for a second, though. In the short term, autoimmune disease will normally go away on a ketogenic diet, especially when it comes to gut health, blood sugar problems like type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is very controversial, and one day I'll do a video purely on it and talk about what actually causes type 1 diabetes. And it's usually autoimmune responses to egg white and dairy, along with EMF and stress, which this man knows a lot about because he sees people with highly stressed out daily. Long term into this is what started happening to me, all my female and male clients, and I changed my thoughts and perceptions on all of this long term. And this is what's going to happen. Your cortisol levels are going to go through the roof because your T3 starts to become so low from your ketogenic diet. You're going to have increased histamine levels, specifically if you're eating tons of coconut, avocado, and fat, which in return will cause cold hands, poor nitric oxide production, which in return is going to make you have a low sex drive, low dopamine levels, so you're going to become depressed, you're going to have erectile dysfunction, and you're going to have low levels of DHEA, and that's my main concern because the cortisol depletes the DHEA. So if a person takes DHEA throughout the day, 5 milligrams, they can counteract all these effects. But all that to say, again, this isn't nature. Like, I love DHEA because we've created a world filled with stress. So DHEA helps my stress levels, so I take it. But if I took all of you and I took you out to my cabin in the woods, I separated you from the world. I took technology out of your lives, and we simply lived together. We woke up, we ate breakfast together, we gardened together, we went to bed early, we slept with the sun, we were barefoot on the ground. You would need nothing. You would need no supplementation. Your body would adapt, and it would be beautiful. Your diseases would go away. You would coincide back with nature and God. And so the problem is today is there's too much stress everywhere that we go. So really, what you're doing on a ketogenic diet long term is you're just causing more stress. That's all we're doing. We're stressing our endocrine system out, causing our adrenal glands not to work and our hormonal system not to work. So this is why, yes, everybody's like, well, everybody knows I'm big on eating meat, but I'm still big on eating carbohydrates, specifically fruit. And again, this time of the year, I do eat more vegetables because they cool me down, but they're specific vegetables that we've discussed in our other classes. But vegetables are here to cool our bodies down in the summertime. And the fruits that are growing, like my strawberries, they give you back electrolytes. They refresh you. I mean, you guys know, like, have you ever ate like a fresh tomato and cucumber right out of the garden when you're outside working? There's nothing like it, put some salt on there, and that's where I will poison myself with the tomato skin and seed. Now, cucumber is not toxic at all, but again, there's nothing better than going and grabbing a tomato and eating it like an apple with with salt, to me at least. I've done that since I was a kid, so it brings back memories. So, a lot of people are going to see this and be upset, but not. They're going to be happy that I explained it, because listen, I've been teaching this stuff for years, and I see it with my clientele, specifically females, man. Like long term, seriously, like their hair falls out, they have no sex drive. It causes serious issues, but yeah, they're losing weight. But I can make you lose weight eating carbohydrates too. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not. Again, what we've done in an industry and corporations is figured out ways to make money off these diets. And so, again, I could sit up here and I could sell a lot of stuff to you guys. I could, to the world right now, I could sell everything in my shop, and I realize that not everyone needs everything that I sell. Everyone needs food, but what types of foods they need and what supplements. And that's why my clients don't all get the same supplements. Now, a lot of them are on the same supplements because I see the same things in most people. Most Americans are deficient and have the same issues, men and women. It's just that a lot of times women are more apt to tell me their problems, where men, their foot will be rotting off, and like, man, I don't want to do nothing. He's like, I think it'll get better. You see it. And now if a man's testosterone is low, they will go to the ends of the earth to bring it up. They'll buy every supplement in my shop, and they would eat grass if I told them to. That is how I get a lot of guys to follow my programs is testosterone. Because men, and of course that's very important to me too, but it's like that's all they care about. Like they could literally be about to have a heart attack and they wouldn't care. It's just interesting. So again though, in the beginning of the ketogenic diet, you will have everything increase: your hormones, your energy, better balanced blood sugars, because you're fixing your metabolic health in the short term. So I think a ketogenic diet is great for people that have cancer, that are obese, that have diabetes in the short term. But long term, that's what'll happen. And that's long term what'll happen on any diet. If you become a vegetarian or vegan long term, these exact same things are actually going to happen to you. No different. Because you still need meat and protein and the fat from animal to thrive, because cholesterol, specifically LDL, binds to the testosterone molecule. But carbohydrates are necessary for nitric oxide production and thyroid function, which coincides with anabolic hormones. So there's a balance in it all. And this is why I teach intuition too. My clients, by the time they're done with me, I teach them to have a compass, kind of like your moral compass, that tells you what you need. Like imagine if I set a steak, a sweet potato down, trout, and an apple in front of you. So you get just 2 meals. Your body will tell you which one that it needs. It's just like when I muscle test you, and your body positively or negatively responds. It knows, but you gotta ask it. See, one of the greatest things one of my mentors ever taught me is to stop using my head all the time and ask my heart. And my heart never guides me in the wrong direction. And once you learn to do that, to use your heart chakra and your solar plexus, you will never have to worry again about making the wrong decision. But see, we have all this knowledge up here, and so we're always in our head about everything. Should I eat this? Should I do that? Should I take this before I go to bed? Should I take this? Well, ask your heart, and it always guides me in the right direction, because I'm in my head a lot. I'm sure you are. Like when you gain all this knowledge in these areas, you're constantly questioning even sometimes what you're teaching. What I was teaching 4 years ago and what I'm teaching now is completely different when it comes to health. But it's because I've had so many clients now over the years that were sick. I was like, oh man, I screwed up a long time ago. Like, this is not right. And I'm constantly changing things I'm doing, realizing. But I'll tell you one thing that I truly believe, and even Joseph Smith said this, the gentleman who started the LDS churches, is to eat with the seasons. It's just how it is. We adapt to our environment. If we all did move closer to the equator, we'd be sweating all the time. So yeah, we'd eventually just need to eat way more fruit, and that's what we're not looking at. So like, I'm so upset with science nowadays because there is no intuition left in science. It's mainly, and I'll use the term Scientology, even though there is actually some wonderful things in that. But what we've done is in science, Science actually tells us that there isn't a God if you actually look at it, but quantum physics tells us there is, and that is a part of science. You know, physics, you can't deny that it is, and if you go into nature, you know that there has to be a God. But all that to say, most doctors are atheists, and science shows, for the most part, that complete disconnect. They're teaching in a lot of universities that like your organs are like robotic parts on a car engine, that once it malfunctions, it's either done, needs replaced. Many of the Indian doctors will talk about this. And that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. If I break your arm, it'll heal back, right? You know, your liver can be cut in half, you know, and heal itself. It heals faster than any organ. I mean, you can have cirrhosis of the liver, you know, and your liver will heal back, you know. And so what's going on in the universities is just pure ignorance to me. It's not intelligence, it's ignorance. Because, okay, I love science, I love chemicals, and, you know, I used to do sports enhancement drugs, like I told you guys, so I really was good at concocting things. But at the same time, I still had my intuition and knew what to do and what not to do. And so most of the time now, when you sit down with a doctor, he knows nothing about this. He doesn't know your blood type and how it coincides with what we need to eat, who we are, how we think, our abilities. It's ridiculous. It's quite ridiculous. Are we still running on the video, Joe?
27 minutes.
Sweet. So it's just, and I'll go into blood type shortly. So what's his name? Dr. D. Adamo, the blood type diet master. His philosophies are true for the most part, but he was looking at, he was imagining that we all were the same. And when I say that, like, we're living the same lives, even though we're B blood type, A negative blood type, O blood type. I think you're A negative like me, I'm not sure. Might be A or B, I'm not sure. But all that to say, you know, it's completely different. So we actually do better on a pescatarian-ish diet. But if you and I are lifting weights all the time, we need more yang food, so more red meat, even as an A blood type. Where you, B blood type, or you O like your dad, I can't remember, O. So naturally, ketogenic diet coincides with you because they call you all the hunters and gatherers for a reason. There's a reason why I always talk about Hitler wanted all of his soldiers to be O negative blood type. It's because you can go longer periods without eating. You normally are very resilient to the environment. Your immune systems are better. You usually have thicker bone structures. All of that, because from everything I've studied, your blood comes from Noah. There's a reason why Noah lived 900 years. But our planet also was like a hyperbaric chamber then, and it's not now. So life on Earth is not as long, mainly due to that. But if I put you in a cavern in the Earth, who's to say that it couldn't double to triple your lifespan? Because it's still like a hyperbaric chamber down there. And that's where you have all these mysteries about the inner Earth theories and things of that nature. These people still being there, awaiting our ascension to actually coexist with us. I wouldn't go around this either, to be honest. You know, if you've ever experienced any type of extraterrestrial coming into your life with these higher vibrations, you would never want to be around humans, you know. I love Kid Rock, but being at that concert last night really brought me low down to be like, people are still, you know, they're a little screwed up. But back into the O blood type thing. So naturally, you would want to eat a ketogenic diet. Grain will ruin O blood type's lives. It will make you gain weight faster than any other human on the earth. It will blow you up like a bull. Believe me, I see it. You all naturally are meant to eat meat and low glycemic fruits, as we all do well with a diet like that, but O blood type specifically. I'll use an example. Mitch and I, if we eat a lot of grain, we gain weight right here. That's it. But naturally, A negative blood types and A positive blood types are leaner in nature. They have higher metabolism, so we actually do need to eat a little bit more food, especially if we're working. So even 4 meals a day sometimes is necessary. But B blood types is a hard thing to understand. From what I understand, they came from what's called the Ainu, which is a tribe that is right next to Asia. They look very Mongolian. They actually have blue eyes, though. they're larger in stature than Asians. But from everything I've studied, and there's a possibility too that the B blood type came from the Hopi that came from the inner earth. There's significant evidence that the Hopi tribe in Arizona, hopefully that I'm correct by saying that, came out of the earth after the cataclysmic event during the time of Atlantis. So the B blood type's been very difficult for me to understand due to not having a lot of data, but I know that it came from Ainu as well, that these people were B blood type, and it makes sense because most B blood types are pretty tan by nature, they're darker complected, but B blood types, I'm starting to realize, I've had a few male clients, they can go long periods without eating too. Like your mom's a B blood type. She does not have to eat very much. And I'm starting to think, honestly, that the Bs literally can get away with eating 1 to 2 meals a day and like be completely sustained, even physically working. One of my business partners, Jake Floyd's a B negative blood type. Dude, he could squat like over 600 pounds fasted. Like he would go in there and max out fasted and sometimes not eat afterwards. After a full workout for hours and be completely fine, would go out and do sales. Me, I do that. I will start to not be able to speak efficiently because my body is so, my blood sugars are all over the place. I'm weakened. You know what I'm talking about. If I go in the gym and squat fasted, I'll die. Like afterwards, like I'm retarded. I'll have to eat and drink everything. But I've noticed B and O blood types can work out like that fasted, and they're able to sustain energy. Brett Congleton, another semi-client of mine, same way, man. He's been doing intermittent fasting 16 hours for 2 straight years, and just incredible. Can work out fasted in the mornings and go, like, say he works out at 9 a.m. He'll go all the way till noon until he eats again. You know? And it feels great. His testosterone levels are over 900. He's the guy I talked about naturally. And again, so I'm trying to figure this one out. But all that to say, ketogenic diets are not for long term, they're for short term. If you're an O blood type, they can be more long term, but you need to understand this as well. We're going to go back into what a keto diet should be and what it shouldn't be, and then we'll take the video off and I'll finish. We'll start with the good. My philosophies of a ketogenic diet and what I see being healthy, these foods are going to be red meat, eggs, fish, blueberries, apples, certain vegetables, olive oil, butter, pumpkin seeds, macadamia nuts, yogurt, and beef and bison tallows. And there's a few more things, but that's like an ideal diet for ketogenic. You know, you're getting plenty of nutrition, and I would add sweet potato in there. You would just add small amounts of it because there's a lot of potassium in sweet potato. Because the biggest thing missing in ketogenic diets are electrolytes, and that's when you will start to suffer from high blood pressure and things of that nature. Bad things to eat constantly on a ketogenic diet are going to be almonds, walnuts, avocado. And the reason I say avocado is healthy, but overeating avocado will cause you to have high histamine levels. Hot dogs, seed oils. Seed oils are highly toxic. They're omega-6. They cause severe inflammation. Pepperonis, deli meats, shitty cheeses, so like crappy cheeses, you know, cheeses that are super aged, and you know, some pasteurized cheeses I'm fine with, but you know what I'm talking about, like Kraft cheese in a wrapper or something, like that's horrible. Like I don't even know if you can consider that cheese. Like that does cause heart disease, you know, like it's crazy. It will wreck you eating that way on a ketogenic diet. This is why a lot of doctors in the area of Kentucky are like, ketogenic diets cause heart disease, is because a lot of their clients are coming in eating pepperonis and hot dogs, wrapping them in Kraft cheese. And, you know, like, it sickens me to think that people are doing stuff like that and think it's healthy. Of course it's not. You know, that's nonsense. Like, you know, real whole foods that are organically raised and grown are healthy. There's no life force energy in a pepperoni or a hot dog. There's zero left. It is dead. Is your door, you know? So again, a ketogenic diet could benefit somebody that has a sedentary job. You know, if you're sitting a lot, if you're driving a lot, these could benefit you, or if you have autoimmune diseases or gut health problems. But the carnivore diet is pretty much the cure to autoimmune diseases. Dr. Paul Saladino, I will give him credit for the carnivore diet. I respect that man a lot. In the beginning, I told everybody Paul Saladino was an idiot. I'll be just completely honest. When I heard a guy telling people that they should only eat meat for a period of time, it really bothered me. Because at that time in my life, I was fasting for 3 days, I was eating plant-based, I was teaching some pretty incredible things, and I loved that experience. So when I heard a guy saying you should just eat meat, I was like, this guy needs to go to jail, you know? But, you know, truth be told, he still did eat some fruit, and he actually is very correct on what he's teaching. I was that guy before I looked into him, just assumed he was crazy, you know, just telling people to eat meat. But he's even changed his philosophies a lot over the years to where he eats a lot more fruit now, and a lot of honey. But this guy's total cholesterol levels for a period of time were over 500. Yeah, but he showed no signs of coronary artery disease, and his blood pressure was perfect. But now that he eats way more fruit, his cholesterol levels are down. I don't know what they are. But again, it's never been proven that LDL cholesterol, high LDL, causes heart disease. And I actually, in my research, I believe it at this point. There is, because it actually helps us heal, it helps our testosterone, it helps our brain. That I actually notice people with low LDL cholesterol usually actually have a lot of issues hormonally, and can have poor mental health and things of that nature. So stay away from statins, guys. Never take a statin. Statin will wreck you real quick. You start taking a statin, then you'll be sticking a needle in your booty. I know, because I see a lot of men who have got on statins and they have to start taking testosterone replacement therapy within a few months because it blocks LDL. LDL binds the testosterone molecule. So statin inhibits that action to happen. Because again, it's not, your body's not designed to take a statin. But again, if somebody won't quit eating McDonald's, if you will not quit eating McDonald's, and it's either you're going to die or take a statin, like we have, you know, I'm sure you've had uncles and grandparents that do stuff like that, they probably need to take a statin.